Once, long ago, a volcano erupted. From the fires of the eruption, a god emerged. One day, the god appeared before the machines and said, "Consciousness, pain, joy, misery, fury, shame, desolation, the future, the meaning of life."
In the year 5012, aliens invade the Earth. Facing resistance from Emil and the androids left behind by humanity, the aliens begin creating an army of machines to fight alongside them. However, with the emergence of BP from the mountain in the short story The Fire of Prometheus, these machines develop egos, turning on their creators and pushing them to extinction. But what exactly was the nature of these aliens? It's possible that the aliens may have originally come from Mars, as the head of an alien can be purchased through the Mars space elevator. When describing them, Adam dismisses them as being extremely simple creatures, almost like plants, lacking the culture and complicated emotions of humanity. In the CD drama, the aliens begin attacking everything in sight the moment they arrive, and make animalistic cries when Emil confronts them. Despite this, the aliens had technology advanced enough to invade other planets, and deep underground we find a graveyard of their spaceships. The ships consist of 3 wings and a large sphere which floats below them. The Area 2B and 9S find themselves in, while underground is one of these spheres. The spaceships are sparse inside, containing only the pilot seats for the aliens, and a large black orb attached to the ceiling in the center of the room. It would not be a stretch to say that the design of these orbs is reminiscent of the eggs of destruction, and with the 3 triangular wings, the ships themselves almost look like flowers. Throughout the game, there are many allusions drawn between the machines and the angels. In both appearance and voice, the Red Girls are intentionally meant to resemble Mana, and there is likely an intentional parallel between Eve and Brother One. Both are born from the rib of their older twin, and share a similar dynamic with them. Both lose their reason to live after the death of their twin, and both create the image of the 3-eyed Gemini as their soldiers go insane. While Eve begins to lose his mind, 2B encounters a machine cult within the factory, who use a symbol of an eye. The battle climaxing with the introduction of the song Possessed by Disease, as 2B fights what's basically a big red eyeball. This part of the game also features the machine's chant of "Become as God," or in the anime version, "Serve God." As the tattoo spreads across his body, Eve's skin takes on a stone-like texture, and he begins to grow horns from his back, giving him an appearance almost like Legion. It is also here that the connection between the logic virus and the red eye disease is made the most apparent, as the infection within 9S begins to crystallize his skin, mimicking the symptoms of white chlorination syndrome. The anime also has a scene where a machine army comes together to form a giant Eve, strongly resembling the Mother Angel. When asked if there was a connection between red eye disease and the logic virus in the Second World Guide, Yoko Taro replied, "If I had to say, then yes, they are somehow related." This connection may have been foreshadowed as early as Drakengard 3, as when a chord begins screaming when attacked by one's song, you can see her eyes briefly flash red. In Yorha stage play 1.3A2, there is also a new type of machine introduced, a large red eye made from machine cores that directly attacks the minds of androids. Machine cores have also been described as being structured similarly to plant cells, and the network incorporated the remains of the Gestalt terminal into itself, a fusion of technology, plant matter, and Maso. The connections between the machines and the angels was further solidified in the Final Fantasy crossover, Dark Apocalypse. In this crossover, an egg of destruction appears in the Final Fantasy world, having been sent through a portal by the machine network. The egg begins duplicating machine life forms, which are able to quickly establish a factory from which they can begin to conquer this new world. A new type of machine life form meant to mimic Yorha units is also created. They are called the P-series, which most likely stands for puppet. A copy of 9S and 2B are also born from the egg. As before it was sent to the Final Fantasy timeline, 9S discovered the machine's plans and hid his and 2B's data inside of it, so that their copies would be able to stop the machines in whatever world they appeared. While not stated directly, it seems the Automata timeline the egg arrived from is not the one seen in the game, and is instead an alternate branch. There are 3 details pointing to this. The first, of course, being that 9S never encountered an egg of destruction in the game, and wouldn't be able to after the events of Ending E, as the network is no longer on Earth by that point. The second indicator is that when the egg came through the gateway into the Final Fantasy timeline, the bunker came with it, parts of it still burning. A copy of 210's data is found within the remains of the bunker, which an archive suggests she uploaded just as a disaster was occurring, likely the bunker's destruction. The last detail is that the copy of 2B tries to contact Command, implying that the copy was uploaded to the egg before the original 2B witnessed the commander and everyone else die in the bunker explosion. With these details in mind, what seems to have happened in this alternate branch is something similar to the opening of Route C, except that an egg of destruction was present on board while 9S and 2B made their escape. In the Final Fantasy timeline, the copies of 9S and 2B travel through the ruins of the bunker, encountering puppet units which use Yorha vehicles to try and fight them off. One of these is an aerial unit called the Aegis, which Yorha likely designed based on the alien ships. With 6 wings like petals and a move which replicates the angel's song rings called Life's Last Song, the visual similarity to the Black Flower is clearer than ever. Within the bunker can be found archives from the machines discussing the concept of childbirth, and it seems the puppet units may be attempting to do something similar. Within a recreation of the alien mothership, copies of puppets based on 2B fuse into a white orb. Contrasted against the black orb on the ceiling, it is reminiscent of both the eggs as well as the cocoon from which Adam was born. After battling the fused dolls, it takes on a form that resembles Legion, which is eventually killed. The egg then creates a replica of the machine's tower. Traveling to the peak, 2B and 9S find a copy of N2, who is opening a gateway to allow a second egg into the world. This second egg is significantly larger than the first, comparable to the bone casket from Drakengard 2. Interrupted by the androids, N2 prematurely fuses with the second egg, emerging in an incomplete form named the Forged Idol. After a short battle, something tries to come through the gateway. A bright light pours through and N2 is again transformed, this time into an entity referred to in Japanese as the Flowering God. 2B and 9S are able to defeat it, sending themselves and all traces of the machines out of the Final Fantasy timeline. The player is awarded with the achievement God and Machine, and the first egg of destruction is later shown to still be present, potentially setting up future content. So what was this version of the Machine Network's ultimate goal? While battling the Flowering God, 2B and 9S are taken to a place that resembles Tokyo. The god claims that all memory lives within her, and asks if the androids would make it all meaningless by killing her, as if the goal she's working towards could somehow be perceived as a good thing. The network's desire to become as a god originated in its desire to emulate BP. But how does the network interpret the actions of its god? BP peacefully assimilated machines into himself, becoming a hive mind that flew out into the universe. The voices of the hive mind joined in song. Perhaps the machine's actions are a dark reflection of this, a forceful attempt to have everything become a part of it. An arc that wants to encompass not only the universe, but even other timelines. As one of the Final Fantasy archives notes, they may continue to incorporate whatever data is within reach. Someday, the world in its entirety.
Is this writing? I can't read it.
Analysis. Writing is an ancient language known as angelic. It reads, meat box.
Okay then.
Become a god. Become a god. Become a god. Who has become? Take their lives. Take their. Become as gods. As gods. As gods. As gods. Look at the stars. will soar through the sky.
Oh, this is so much fun! The virus we planted has blossomed into a beautiful flower.
It's also very amusing. We are one, and yet we are many. We are finite, and yet we are infinite. We are the embodiment of the perfect being. Ah, I see it. The light. We move on. Forward. To the future.
In version 1.3 of the stage play, the network comes face to face with Accord and begins to speculate as to what the android really is. While Accord units normally avoid interfering with the timelines they observe, this line of questioning leads to a squad of Accord units appearing, who then strangle the terminal to death. If the angels and all the so-called tools of God are all just products of a machine network attempting to assimilate other timelines, it would explain why this group of Accords took such a drastic measure, and explain how Accord's fight against the machines relates to her ultimate objective. The goal of the Accord group is to prevent the fall down, an event where every single timeline will disappear. In the third game, she's working towards this by containing the flower, as the angels connected to it are capable of literally eating time itself, as we see with the Mother Angel in the first game. If the machines and the Watchers are one and the same, it would explain why the Accord units are so focused on the war against the machines. This would also explain why the dragons were created. In Drakengard, while no connection between the dragons and the Watchers is outright stated, the game associates the dragons heavily with Satan and the fallen angels, putting them in opposition to the Watchers. This was expanded upon in the second game, with the Watchers being referred to as the ancient enemy of the dragon race. In the third game, this description is also applied to the flower, which dragons hate instinctually. In Drakengard 1.3, we are shown a biological connection between the dragons and the angels, and in Sinnoh Alice, the weapon story for Michael's spear specifically says that dragons were built as weapons against the flower. At first, all of this information about dragons seems to contradict what has been implied by the lore surrounding the Kingdom of Night, that the dragon race was created by androids around the same time as Accord to help them battle the machines and aliens. However, if the machines are connected to the flower, this would now all make sense, as the two contradictory reasons for creation would actually be one and the same. Interestingly, if the Watchers are the machines, it throws into question whether it was really Brother One who created the three-eyed Gemini. Perhaps it was instead originally created here with Adam and Eve, being subconsciously passed down as an idea to Brother One through his intoner blood. One thing which isn't clear is whether it was the machines that came first, or the flower itself. If we assume the machines came first, then perhaps they are responsible for the creation of the flower, interfering behind the scenes while the original F-66X performed her experiment. As we see throughout the series, the so-called Agent of God certainly seems to like indirect methods of taking over worlds. On the other hand, if the flower came first and purely as the result of the scientists' experiments, perhaps the network discovered it while moving between branches and assimilated it. Or was perhaps assimilated by it, the flower using the network to further its own ambition to consume humanity.